As a child, Patrick's world revolved around me. He loved spending time together and always looked forward to our weekends. But as he entered adolescence, his interests and priorities started to shift, and I began to struggle to connect with my son. When a child becomes a teenager, the definition of family changes. The most difficult decision I ever made was the first time my son and I had to agree on something together. Contest cheer, Madam Toastmaster. I was a 40-year-old single parent working 5 long days each week. My son was in his first year in high school. My mother made our lives easier, inviting us over for supper once a week on Fridays. And one Friday, as Mom and I were sitting at the table, the phone rang. It was Patrick. Patrick, where are you? We're having dinner in 10 minutes. What do you mean a surprise? A what? A what? Mom, I'm sorry. Something's going on. I can't figure it out, but Patrick wants me to come home right now. And when I locked the front door, a furry creature jumped on me, pushing me backwards as Patrick grabbed my arm and was pulling me forward. Dad, it's a dog! The woman said I could have it for nothing if I promised to give it a good home. His name is Fidel. A dog? A dog! Patrick! A dog needs time and attention. What are we going to do when I go to work and you go to school every morning? I'll tie him to the fence post in the backyard and he can run around. Patrick, I think we need to go for a walk. We need to talk. For some reason, I didn't Fidel to hear our conversation. Patrick put him in the basement, and we had not even opened the screen door when, oh! Needless to say, we decided to stay home. Patrick opened the basement door, and Fidel galloped into the living room, and he flew into my lap. He flapped me into the sofa. The only part of me that I could see was his rear end with his tail waving merrily into my face. Dad, he likes you. I don't care if he likes me. Get him off of me. Okay, Patrick, it's the weekend. I don't see how this is going to work. But we're going to keep the dog, at least through the weekend. And if we can agree that this works, then we'll keep the dog. But you have to agree at the end of the weekend, we're going to decide. That night, I didn't sleep well. I kept seeing not only Fidel's face, but also his waving back end. And in the morning before Patrick left, I heard, I tied Fidel to the fence so he could run around. I'll see you later. Now, Saturday is my wash day, my clean day. I put the clothes into the wash machine and I begin to straighten up the house. The housework for me, it's not appealing, but there's one thing that I do enjoy. Hanging out the wash, watching the breeze gently blowing the towels and the sheets and all our clothes. It makes me feel at peace in the world. I went outside with our clothes, and Fidel, he was delighted to see me. He ran straight for me, and his front paws knocked me over, and my clothes on the ground. Fidel ran back to me, and then I grabbed his collar, and I placed it on his leash tied to the side fence. I began hanging the remaining clothes. Things were finally peaceful until, squish! I just stepped in a pile of, I took a fabric softener and I wiped off my bare foot. And after this it was hop, skip, all over the yard to avoid the unescapable. I completed my other responsibilities that morning and then I prepared lunch. And when Patrick arrived home, we ate lunch. and I reported the morning event. Patrick just laughed and he patted Fidel on the head. Patrick, I really don't know how we're going to be able to keep him. It's spring now. What are we going to do in the summer when we go kayaking? Do you want to stay home and babysit this dog? Patrick's smile just disappeared. He was facing the two things that he loved, being forced to choose. But logic was on my side. And Patrick said nothing. And he petted Fidel's head. And the next morning, Patrick walked Fidel. He played with Fidel. And he sat outside with Fidel. And then they finally came in. Dad, you're right. It's not fair. Let's take him back. But now somehow, I was beginning to feel attached to Fidel. I began like I was abandoning a good friend. But my conscience told me I had to let him go. We climbed into the car with Fidel in the back seat, and we started the journey back to Fidel's old home. And when we arrived, Patrick took Fidel inside. And as I sat in the car and I felt my eyes just swelling up, I really did begin to love that dog. I was experiencing mixed emotions. Patrick came out, stone-faced, and we rode home together in silence. It was one of the first major decisions that we had ever made together as father and son. Patrick reached out and he took my hand and he squeezed it. I think it was his way of saying, see, we were torn apart by this event, but bound closer together in understanding each other. I learned there's countless definitions of family. But when your little boy becomes a teenager, he may begin to look at your world through his eyes. And that's when the definition of family changes.